Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Beginner's Mind series. I first came across the profile of our special guest today while I was searching for virtual keynote speakers on Google. So I type in the best virtual keynote speaker on Google, and here comes up this article on Forbes Magazine titled The Best Virtual Keynote Speaker I've Ever Seen. So I click and I go through the videos and I read about the profile. Some of these videos being live streamed. Most of these videos are live streamed from an empty 720-seater theater with state-of-the-art technology and engaging visuals. And me and my team, we were blown away by the quality of these virtual presentations and have admired the work of our special guest ever since. We hold him in very high regard. He's raised the bar for all of us as far as especially about his talks on innovation and not only the practice, not only the preaching, but also the practice of innovation in terms of his virtual presentations go. His content on innovation has garnered millions of views across LinkedIn, TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook. Mr. Shawn Kanungo is a globally recognized innovation strategist and keynote speaker. He spent 12 years at Deloitte working closely with leaders to prepare them for the opportunities around disruptive innovation. Shawn is a partner with Queen & Rook, where he advises leading organizations on disruptive trends and invests in early stage ventures. He has worked with hundreds of organizations on their journey to digital transformation and led projects incorporating AI, robotic process automation, cloud technologies, behavioral economics, human-centered design, and film. So get your pen and paper ready for those serious students of innovation and virtual keynote speaking out there, because he's been featured in The Guardian and CBC and Avenue Magazine's list of top 40 under 40. We are thrilled to have him, and today we'll speak to Shawn about disruption, innovation, and more importantly, the mindset that drives innovation and growth. Shawn, you're welcome to the show.
Well, Simerjeet, I'm so excited to be here today. Oh, yeah. Round of applause. I really love that. No, I'm really excited to be here today. And by the way, I'm honored to be on here. I've been admiring your work as well. We chatted a little bit before this about how prolific you have been.
Thank
you. How inspiring you have been. So the love is mutual, and I would love to get into the topic of this of innovation and more. But before I do that, wherever you're following this, wherever you're watching this, do this man a favor, please subscribe to him on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Spotify, wherever you are. Okay, just hit that button and give this man some love, because he's putting out some unbelievable content. Please.
Thank you, sir. That means a lot. And, we've had, when the average view duration shoots up on YouTube, we know it's the loyal viewers who are watching this really long, 1 hour long series of the podcast. And we really appreciate all of you across the world watching, tuning in, sharing this content. What I would like to, as a serious student and I'm assuming those of you who are tuning in are serious students of growth, innovation, and future trends. And I request a couple of things from you, as I always had in the past. Have a pen and paper ready to take down notes, learn with the perspective of sharing with other people, and more importantly, implement. You go out with there's wonderful recipes. I saw this recipe yesterday evening, Shawn, to make a red wine sauce, for grilled chicken, right? And
love it.
It was lovely. It turned out really nice. My daughter still loved it. And it's like, Dad, if you wouldn't be a speaker, you should have been a chef. I said, why not? But more importantly, on the drive back home, it struck me, I don't watch recipes just for the sake of watching recipes. I don't browse through videos of recipes. I watch videos of recipes to cook something, to implement it. And it hit me hard. Why do we go through so much transformational content out there on the internet just for browsing's sake, for not implementing it? And I urge every single person who's tuning in to watch this with a perspective of implementing things in your life. So, Shawn, once again, it's a pleasure to have you here. Let's jump right into it. My first thing that I would like to know is that you've raised the bar for virtual keynote speaking. I love the energy, the engagement, and while so many people were doing it from their home, some of us like me were doing it from our virtual studios. You came up with this really crazy idea of using an empty theater, the Meyer Horowitz Theater, I believe, in which you rent it every time. You have an arrangement with them. And how did this idea come? And what were the challenges? And what sort of learning opportunities are here for innovators? Because you're practicing the principles that you preach.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And, like you and many, keynote speakers and folks that build content in studios and other places, when the pandemic hit, everything was wiped out.
Yep.
And to be honest with you, when the chips are down, when there is great, disruption, when there is a great obstacles in the way,
Yep.
to me, I always look at it as an opportunity to innovate, to create something new. And I actually called the team that I've been shooting and producing content with. They're called Bad Films in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. That's where I'm from.
Right.
And I called them and I said, hey, have you guys ever done a live stream before? And they said, no, we've actually never done that. Done that. And their core was actually filmmaking and cinematography. And I said, listen, I've never done a live stream either, but let's have the best live stream that anybody has ever seen. And so immediately, we did have a relationship with the theater because we shot there before, and they weren't busy at all. So it was a great way for us to pay them and keep their people and their technicians busy and have their theater afloat while we would do all these keynotes in these theaters. And lucky enough, video was sort of already in my DNA. I was already on this path of shooting digital content. And now, when the pandemic hit, to me, it was a home game. And so, we just, through the process of experimentation and just putting in the work, to me, it's about, having the courage to do something awe-inspiring, having the courage to do something that's fundamentally differentiated from somebody else, is how I always think. And that's the whole principle of innovation at the end of the day. I have never in my life done a virtual keynote at my house. It's always been with a world-class production team in a theater, because I want to elevate as much as possible. And so, to me, that's what it was all about. And, kudos to you as well. You did the same, right? Getting all the gear, sprucing up, your office, your workplace, and with cameras and gadgets, and obviously taking the same level as well.
Yeah, thank you. No, I feel the common threads that emerge from what you've said so far is the desire to contribute, is the passion for what you're doing, and also the commitment to not settle for something substandard. When you raise the bar high, I think the solutions show up, the people show up. You find the resources, you find the technology, you find the wherewithal, provided you're committed to giving your very best to what you're doing. And I think that's the same thing that led you to experimenting with the theater, which I believe another innovation principle in action is about think big and think different. You thought outside the home office, outside the home, into somewhere that had more space, allowed you the freedom to move around, and the end outcome is phenomenal. But I highly recommend, guys, go check out, for those of you who want to improve your virtual presentation game, go check out Shawn's videos and you will see an entirely different level of technology and interaction and quality that is playing. I'm reminded of what Steve Jobs said here, Shawn, about innovation. He says innovation is the ability to see change as an opportunity, not as a threat, as an opportunity, not as a threat.
I love that. The other thing that I would just add to that is, there's a psychological hack when it comes to content and making great content online. Yeah. For some reason, when the audience sees that you put a lot of effort, when you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into making something look good, not only look good from a production value, but effort around the preparation. The audience is going to care more. They're going to say, Simerjeet put all this effort in. I'm going to pay attention a little bit more. Absolutely. And so that idea of costly signaling, the idea of putting in more effort, can result in greater meaning and significance to your end customer or user or watcher. Is a powerful psychological hack that I think anybody can use.
It is indeed. I saw that props you were using in one of your presentations, the Grey Goose bottle of vodka and the Costco bottle of vodka. And that's a great example. Pretty much there's been so many videos and research studies published online, whether it's tasting champagne, expensive wine, or expensive perfumes. It is how it's presented to you that makes a lot of difference, that shows in essence that the person who's presenting it to you cares about you.
Well, I want to ask you this, because
Sure.
every time I see you, you're always very well dressed. You're very well put together. Now, is
Right.
that something that you naturally think of? When you're on camera, when you're creating content, like, where is that from?
That's from the hospitality industry, where I spent 8 long years. So it became a part of my DNA. Put your suit on in the morning, make sure you're well dressed. And it kept me sane, Shawn, during the last 2 years. This whole ritual, this morning ritual of dressing up. My home is about a 5-10 minute walk from my office, right? So I could very well just get up and just go and whatever, not shave, or however, just turn up for work. And but I felt that it helped me hold on to my positive emotions during these last 2 years, which were very difficult, because talk about disruption. These were the most disruptive years in my entire career as a professional speaker for the last 14 years. When all of a sudden, if you're making a living out of going and speaking in person at conferences, and all of a sudden there's no travel, there's no conferences, there's no events happening, you've got to first look after yourself. And I think it was really important. So this ritual, coming from my service industry DNA, and I often joke about it. Any resort, any hotel across the world, 9 a.m. when I'm getting ready for my keynote and I'm standing in the hallway or something, a lot of people still walk up to me and ask me for directions or where a certain event is. And I'm looking, I don't wear the Radisson or the Grand Hyatt tag anymore. It's perhaps something that's now embedded in my body language. But I feel they have a term for it. They call it neuro-associative conditioning, I believe. Neuro-associative conditioning.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is your mind develops a relationship with your favorite jacket, for example, or your favorite perfume, or the feel of how you feel in a certain costume, how you feel about yourself, and it develops a relationship, specifically if it's got to do with the senses, if it's got to do with the sense of smell or touch, etc. You feel better, and therefore I think that's one of my first responsibilities to my audience, is that I feel good about myself and the work that I'm doing, and I show up and I give my very best. So that's been the driving force behind that.
I love that. That's a symbol. To me, that's a symbol, right? You're putting on your suit. It's a symbol that you're getting ready for work, for war,
it's like
whatever.
A uniform.
I really love that.
Mm-hmm. It's been like a uniform. It's now like the mind is got this message. I'm ready for this. And we've had this rituals for virtual keynotes also. Some things that I used to do backstage earlier, like sometimes a few push-ups or some 5-minute meditation, etc., just to get me centered. And I do that before my virtual keynote as well, because it's about hacking the mindset to tell yourself, look, I'm doing something important. What's coming up deserves my best, and to train your mind, to prime your mind into that same thing. So that's been the intent behind it. In one of your posts, Shawn, viral posts, I must say, you mentioned when people think about innovation, they believe it's 100% about technology. And I think that's the misconception many of us have. Even they look at your videos or mine and they'd say, it's all about the gadgets. It's all about the technology behind it. Your post said innovation is 90% psychology and 10% technology. I want to ask you, what's the psychology, the 90% behind innovation, and how can people who are tuning in right now, how can they use more of it?
Yeah, no, it's it's really important to look at innovation as not just the technology or product. That's the biggest trap in the world. Mm-hmm. And if you look at every single technological disruptor, every single game-changing company, what if they essentially have done, they have tricked us. They have used a psychological innovation to help them grow. I mean, if you look at, for example, Starbucks, the idea that people would buy a coffee for $4? I mean, it sounds absurd. I mean, if you look at a company like Peloton, like people are buying these very expensive bikes, and on top of that, convincing people to pay a subscription service. Uber is a psychological innovation. The idea. The whole idea of eliminating the wait time, so when your car arrives, like now you can maybe have a nice coffee or tea and wait for your Uber to come.
Right.
All of the best companies in the world are psychological, have psychological innovations. And so if you're a young person, if you're an innovator, if you're an entrepreneur, my ask to you is take a look at what motivates us as humans. And take a look at human behavior and what are the things that drive us. Could be around status or scarcity. I mean, if you look at, for example, how companies have grown or exponentially grown, they've all used the idea of status and scarcity that is sort of embedded in our DNA. Facebook started with a Harvard email. You needed a Harvard email to start.
Right.
Uber started with black cars in San Francisco. Clubhouse started with invite only. TikTok. There's every single company starts with some sort of psychological hack, identity, belonging. So take a look at some of those things that move human behavior, and you will find great innovations from there.
Well, that's great. And if I may add to that, I feel it's also important to step away from your legacy, because that just might be the thing that might be holding you back. I'm reminded of what Albert Einstein he said about innovation, and one of the most prolific thinkers, and shattered many myths about what science meant. He said the significant problems we face cannot be solved by the same level of thinking that created them. So which means in order to go to the next level, you've got to somewhere detach from your own identity, what it previously used to be. If you're a large or small organization reinventing yourself, you need to step away from what you might be, that zone of how you define yourself, so that you can reinvent yourself, because that definition might be stopping that process of reinvention. So that also happens to be, another driving force there. Shawn, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing that holds people back when they are innovating, is their own expertise, their own identity at the end of the day. And you're absolutely right. And I'm just curious from you as well. I know in 2007 you had a pivotal shift in your life when you made a radical change and almost dropped sort of your past identity to forge a new one. How did you go off and do that?
I think first was building up the courage, and discovering my why is very important. As I reflect back on it, was to discover my why. Why do I want to do this new thing? Is it an escape? Is it just an escape mechanism? Am I escaping the boredom or what I'm already doing? And how is my new challenge, my new profession going to fill that? So it was not a decision that I made in an instant. The thought process behind it started happening long before. But 2 or 3 things were very important in my transition. One was the ability to think big, and I had not given myself the permission to do that in a really long time, because here was this path, this trajectory laid out in front of me, that this is how it's supposed to be. And then all of a sudden I go, how about this? Right? How about if I leave my job, if I enter this new exciting space of what I want to do? And back in 2008 in India, Shawn, at that point of time, we had 2 or 3 people who were full-time keynote speakers or professional speakers, just a handful. There were other people doing it as, sort of a hobby or something else. So it was entirely brand new, a new area for me to enter. So one was discovering my why. I think the second part in the entire transformation process was, will this allow me to use my strengths more or not? So I was lucky enough to attend a seminar where the presenter asked us about what are your top strengths and how much of your strengths are you using in your current profession, and what makes you really come alive? So I gave a thought to that. I said, well, it's people. whether it's customers, whether it's staff members I hire from different parts of the world. I want to develop them, motivate them, inspire them. Hired somebody as a supervisor. I want to see him as a assistant manager in 6 months' time or 1 year's time. And that is something that gives me a lot of satisfaction. Solving customer issues gives me a lot of satisfaction. Not numbers so much. And I saw the path ahead of me. So operations manager to general manager to regional manager, it was becoming a more numbers-oriented game. I didn't like that. So I spent my time researching what are the next few steps and will I like them or not? And the answer was no. I said, okay, time to change gears and change direction.
Love that. I love that. There's so many powerful pieces to pull out of that. So that's great. We're gonna have. By the way, we're gonna have a side chat after this. That's for the premium subscribers, where we're gonna dive deep into how we both sort of made these pivots. I'm fascinated. By
Absolutely. And talking about pivots and transformation, I understand. You were from an accounting background before, Shawn, or tell us about your background and how did you move into this space?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Good research. Wow. I started my career in accounting, like probably many of your audience. They're graduating, they're trying to figure out what to do. My first foray was into accounting, and I spent only a couple of years in there. I ultimately got my CA or CPA, as they call it. And, to me, it was a great foundation and a great building block for me to build on top of it. So I went into management consulting, and that's how I got into strategy and innovation. But my real sort of MBA when it came to accounting, or my real startup when it came to accounting, is actually in 2008. My father passed away, and he was an accountant. He had over 200 clients. He passed away suddenly, and I actually had to take over his accounting firm. And that was just putting me in the dragon's den in terms of figuring out how to run a accounting company, accounting firm, how to manage clients and bookkeeping and taxes. And I was able to successfully sell the firm, and it was actually really important because it taught me about entrepreneurship. It taught me about, really exploring my own passions, and it allowed me to start other ventures and get into consulting and all the things that I'm doing right now. That was the catalyst. That was the game-changing point for me. I see. So that was really important.
And how did the journey from after selling the firm to moving to Deloitte and then quitting that job and moving into this space, being a thought leader and speaker on disruptive innovation? Tell us a little bit about that. What prompted it? What inspired it? What's your driving force?
Yeah, I love management consulting. I love helping and advising clients. I still do it today. I love the idea. I spent 12 years at Deloitte. 10 of them, 9 to 10 of them was within management consulting, within strategy, within innovation. I really, really love that, and I still do that today. But I found a shift happening in the world, and I actually was part of it. There's a shift happening where the balance of power was shifting from institutions, from firms, from organizations to individuals. Us as individuals have more power than ever before. And I started to discover that as I started to build my own brand and my own brand equity, and I started to build content. What I started to notice is what clients wanted to work with me. Now, don't get me wrong. Deloitte is a massive firm and a huge firm, amazing firm. I love them. But I saw this shift happening to individuals, and I was kind of in this spot where I was, clients want to work with me. I was getting all these speaking engagements. I was at the same time, I was building my own brand equity. And I knew that by building my own brand equity, I could also get equity in other companies. And so to me, it was a no-brainer to leave because essentially I was betting on myself. I was betting on my own personality, my thoughts, my ideas, my IP. And, it's funny, many people would make that move. To quit and go on their own, and they would, it would be a very difficult decision. But for me, it was so easy because I had built it up to that point. Like I built up the reputation, the brand, the content at that point. And so it was an easy shift. And I'm still great friends with and with folks at Deloitte, but to me, to start my own thing and to start to invest in my own ventures,
right?
It's just the sky's the limit. I'm having the most fun that I've ever had in my entire life. It's
with the
it's
freedom
really
to do what you want to do, right? With the freedom to pursue things that you want to. And I think another important similarity has come up that for you, it was also a natural transition. It was not like a huge leap into something different, right? You were preparing for yourself for the next role. And I was doing the same, right? So I paralleled to, before I quit my job, 2 or 3 years before, I started attending all these seminars. I started listening to all the influential speakers out there, started NLP, executive coaching training, so many other things, spending more time with my staff on mentoring them, etc. Things that I would do in my new role, I was already getting better at them in my existing job. And here's a very, very important message for youngsters, especially mid-career professionals, those of you going through a midlife crisis, which is a huge issue, by the way, for many people in their 40s and mid-40s. Prepare yourself for your next role while you are doing what you are doing. You may not like what you're doing at the moment, but find out the time to explore and build that capacity, build those muscles and explore. And then it'll be an easy, natural transition. A lot of youngsters, they try to make this big leap into something different, and they suddenly find out, the grass was not as green on the other side as they anticipated, right? What do you think?
I think that's the best advice. I actually think that's the best advice for every single person. I think every single individual should constantly be tweaking and experimenting and finding what they're passionate about and entering into small ventures or big ventures and really sort of exploring and learning outside of what they're doing. I mean, I even look at some of the most successful people in the world, and that's what they're doing. People like Jeff Bezos. He ran the most successful company of the last of our generation around Amazon, and he was passionate about space and passionate about getting into that field and going into a new frontier. Like, I just think that the best innovators, the best entrepreneurs, the best the most world-class professionals, they're always thinking about what else can I try and tweak and experiment. That's just lifelong learning.
And they've learned how to channel their restlessness. I feel these creative, innovative people, they have this constant, if they don't channel it, it turns into anxiety. It turns into, self-sabotage, something wrong, right? You're going to, it's energy. If you don't unleash it, if you don't invest it, it's going to backfire somewhere, right? And these people, they've learned how to invest that excess energy in a proper way. And that gives them those results. And, rewind back, since you brought it up about my transition, 27, 28, when I was 27 at that point of time, right? This goes back to, I'm not revealing my age, but I was 27 at I was 27 then, Shawn, and I realized I had way more energy, physical energy, mental capacity to do way more than my current job even required or even allowed me to use. So there I started. I said, I got to brainstorm and find something that challenges me on a daily basis, because when you open a new property, you've got people to hire and uniforms and food menus and hiring and so many other things. But once things are set into motion, it's pretty much standard that the challenge, the sense of that challenge goes away. And for someone like me with that excess energy, reservoir of excess energy, I thought I wasn't doing justice to myself. So that was one of the trigger points. I'm glad you brought that up. Elon Musk, another fantastic example. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
And I don't know what you're gonna do when you retire, Simerjeet. Like I can't see you like sitting on a lawn chair, on a beach in Goa. Like I can't see you relaxing. You probably can't retire. You're gonna create more content. You're gonna go to the moon. Like I'm worried for you on that front. The amount of content you're putting out at such a high volume. You're not gonna rest.
No, but I wouldn't like to. I mean, so the whole concept of retirement, it does not, I find it difficult to comprehend it because you got to draw a sharp line. This was employment. This is retirement. For me, it's like, no. I mean, why could retirement for me happen at 27? That was retirement. If retirement means quitting I wasn't 9 to 5. Hospitality is definitely not 9 to 5, but quitting a formal corporate setup and doing your own thing. Then retirement happened for me at 27. And what I now get to do is merge and decide and play with these quantities of leisure and work and where I want to work and how much I want to work. And so the whole concept of, one certain day there's a retirement party and I'm coming back home and I don't know what to do next. And that does not, it's scary. And I can now imagine how scary it must be for people who've devoted 35, 40 years of their life to a profession. And now it's bye-bye and just go home and figure out something for yourself. While still they're at their peak, I believe, Shawn, if we look after ourselves physically, emotionally, financially, your 60s, I mean, that's the time when people retire usually in India. I'm not sure about Canada. We have 58, 60 sort of the retirement age. And that's like a peak period, man. You're at the peak of the people that you know, the skills that you have, the strings that you can pull, the subject matter expertise you have. There's so much more that you can do in the next 10 years. The 60 to 70 bracket, there's so much more value you can add to the world if you fight against this entire industrial age concept of retirement. So I hope this conversation.
If that's the case, I gotta start Botox now, so that in 60, I just maintain the same level of my look right now, because if that's the prime, I want to look good in the prime, Simerjeet.
No, save the Botox for a little bit later, but
okay.
I think. Because once you started, so I've heard, once you started, you need regular 6 monthly injections of Botox. So I've heard from people who use it. I don't myself, but I think we should be worried more about the wrinkles on our heart, on our spirit, on our mind than the wrinkles on our face. Yeah, we got to worry about those wrinkles, and we got to worry about not our shrinking, maybe skin is shrinking or drying up, but your mind is drying up. You should be worried about that, right? So,
okay, somebody's gonna clip this piece out. That was the bomb of the entire podcast.
Well,
we should just cut it now. That was amazing. I love that.
Oh, great! Now I'm loving this conversation, Shawn. And I love your thumbnails, by the way. All your YouTube videos have this, such clean design. I love it. And one of them said, "The greatest era of innovation is coming." I love it. I'm all excited about it. I live in a country which is eager to unleash its potential with the demographics supporting. We have some of the youngest population on the planet. We have a nation that aspires to do a lot, right? So this is exciting. The greatest era of innovation is coming. And I quote from one of your videos, "This is a tsunami that will melt away bureaucracy, hierarchy, and nostalgic ideas. And this pandemic could be the tipping point for the revolution we've all been waiting for." My question to you, my friend, is this. Why do you feel that way, number one? And what is going to melt away and what will replace it? And what are the opportunities?
Yeah. It's funny because I believe that video was shot at the beginning of the pandemic. So it must have been like April or May of 2022 of 2020. Mm-hmm. And my thesis then was that, this is the big bubble that has bursted. Right. And if you flash forward even 2 years, that statement is even stronger today. I mean, you look at things like the Great Resignation, that more and more people are leaving their traditional work environments because they want something that's better. They want something that they're passionate about, that aligns with their identity, with their purpose. You see, things melting away, like, bureaucracy, hierarchy. I've seen the oldest governments, the most archaic governments in the world, adopting digital in new ways. They're adopting digital processes. You don't have to go into, a government office here and there, like across the world. I think the greatest revolution, is really about the individual. I think I think this pandemic has empowered the individual more than ever before, because now we're sitting at our houses and we have all the technology that we ever needed in our pocket. We have all the media and mediums to actually get out our message. The technology has become increasingly more commoditized. Like, it's so much easier to start things today than ever before, no matter where you are within the world. And that was always going to happen, but this pandemic was the unlock that for this revolution to start. And of course, there's lots of technological innovations that have accelerated during the pandemic, and we can get into that. But this is the greatest push forward that we will ever see in our lifetime.
I completely agree with that. Look at EdTech, for example. I was reading about there's an Indian company called Byju's. I'm not sure if you've heard of them. Yeah. They're an EdTech company valued over $40 billion. And they started with this one guy who's a fantastic teacher. And he used to fill up stadiums, because he was a great teacher. And then he moved into EdTech. And then the company became a unicorn, funding, international expansion, etc. I just read it in The Economist yesterday, their revenues, then their valuation more than doubled in the last year and a half, right? That's the amount of digital push EdTech had during this time. Think about so many people are now comfortable. Zoom existed before the pandemic as well. This technology was around, these Zoom meetings, etc. But we were not using those things as much. And now suddenly everybody's so comfortable. In fact, when I did, back in October, when I did an in-person event for Marriott Hotels here in India, and I had to travel, and I actually found that entire travel part like inconvenience that I had forgotten about. The waiting in the security and the entire thing, the waiting for flights and just traveling to that location. And I find this much more effective, and I hope it sticks around. I'm sure it will. Some part of corporate learning and development, as well as individual learning and development, will continue to happen on a virtual platform because of the sheer convenience of it. You could hire the best teachers, coaches, life coaches, anywhere. Borders, not a problem, where that person is located, not an issue, as long as you agree on the time zones and other things. So the opportunities are, there's plenty of opportunities, so many new doors. However, one concern, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about that, what impact, Shawn, do you feel is work from home is going to have on innovation and collaboration? What are your thoughts on this? Is it going to go up?
I might be a minority in this case, but I really believe that remote work is going to be awful for long-term innovation. It's going to be detrimental for sustaining innovations. Let me explain, and this is based on my own experience. So my experience working with organizations across this planet have been setting up innovation teams or working with innovation groups, solving very difficult challenges. And what I have discovered is that, innovation is hard enough. To really, truly come up with something transformative, it's hard enough. It requires energy, momentum, collisions, serendipity, a little bit of luck, and
corporate politics.
The punchline is that when everyone is working from home, you lose that energy a bit. You lose that momentum. Don't get me wrong. You could wake up in the morning, brush your teeth and jump on a Zoom call. It's really seamless and easy. But over time, you lose that energy and that trust that is required to really make innovation happen. And I know lots of organizations are implementing the work from home strategies or hybrid work, and they're telling some people, work from home anywhere, anytime, actually never come back to the office. I think in the long run, I'm saying long run, we're going to see the fact that we don't have affinity for the work that we have, the jobs that we have, the companies that we work for, and ultimately, when we're working on hard problems, we're just not going to be able to sustain the level of momentum for them. And I know your audience is full of bright young individuals, and I'm going to say this with peace and love to the people that are watching this. And if you're graduating or you're in school, you are actually going to get an advantage being in the office. Part of being in the office is getting a mentor. It's learning how to make a friend. It's learning how to deal with a crappy boss. It's getting feedback and criticism without somebody booking a time with you, virtually. So if you are young and you're ambitious and you can go into the office, I highly recommend that you do, because your level of learning will increase, and you'll get that serendipity, that luck. You'll see things that you haven't seen before, instead of
Right.
just looking at your closet all day long. So that would be my that's my take on it. And it's not popular, because, and it's not, Simerjeet, because most people are enjoying remote
Right.
work. I get more flexibility. I can do that. Yes, I get it.
Right.
Just think about the long-term disadvantages of it.
I completely agree with that. And in the long term, yes. Because for me, Shawn, innovation is not just about aha moments. It's not just about insights. It's about great you have an insight, great you have a breakthrough, and you have an idea. Now, how do you put that idea into practice? For a solopreneur or a small and medium entrepreneur, it's easy. I call the shots. I say, okay, let's do this. I have all approvals in place. We'll spend the money, and the ball starts rolling. It's pretty easy. In a corporate setup, especially with large corporations, there's so many, it needs to go through so many hurdles. It needs so many people are going to say no just to earn brownie points. In some cultures, this is the norm. Saying no to new ideas earns you brownie points to please the boss. And there's so many other challenges you'll have to navigate. There's a lot of politics behind, it's his idea. I'm not going to let it move forward, right? And there's so many other financing or marketing, or how you bring that product to market, that idea to life. Navigating all those challenges in a work from home environment, I feel, is going to be way more difficult than in person. Or the speed at which innovation can move in a remote environment is way slower than it can in person, because you've got decision makers close by. You can immediately have discussions around that. So that's my take on it. What do you think?
You know what? Yeah, you're right on that front. I think where we're going to see a lot of friction is this awkward phase where we have this hybrid, style of working. Some people are remote, some people are in the office. Some people are global, some people are in the office. Like it's going to create a lot of friction over the next decade, and organizations will have to figure it out, and how it's going to impact relationships, trust. Employee wellness, innovation, lots of challenges ahead. But my default is this: no matter what organization you're in, the default should be always, how do we make this better for humans? Right. How do we make this better for the people that are working for us, or your entrepreneur? How do we make this better? And of course, at the end of the day, getting more flexibility is better. I think we can all agree with that. Yep. But not having affinity and trust and relationships with the people that you're working with, your bosses, and having a relationship with your company, and those things are actually detrimental to the human. So I think that's the question that we should be asking. Absolutely. That sums it up. Keep the human in the center. That's a human-centered design. The empathy for people, build it for people, whether it's internal customers, external customers. It reminds me of this interesting, we had set up this entire virtual studio in the office, and the team and I were very proud of it. And I had to present to a bunch of teachers to a school in Abu Dhabi. Went really well, high quality video, audio. We were patting ourselves on the back here. Well done. And then towards the end, the school, the director, the board of directors, the head came and said, Simerjeet, wonderful presentation, very engaging, great content. But I could see that you were not able to maintain eye contact with the audience, right? There were like 250 teachers tuned into what you were saying. And I said, okay, well, thank you. I took his feedback positively. We went back again to figure out. And what was happening, Shawn, was I had the camera up here and I had my large screen monitor here, which is where I could see the Zoom participants. So if I'm looking at them, which is a natural human tendency to do, right? I got 200 smiling faces and they're reacting to what I'm saying. If I'm looking at them and I'm not really looking at them, because I'm not looking at the camera, I'm looking on the screen where I can see them. So I said, okay, this is where the problem is, and how do we get to the root cause, and how do we solve it? And then that led to a search on how to use a teleprompter
and put the camera behind the teleprompter, use an iPad as a second screen so I could actually look at people and read their comments and see their faces while maintaining eye contact. So what you said was really important. Innovation or any new way of working cannot succeed until we keep the basic human desires right in the middle, right up front and center. And here it was, we had all the flashy gadgets and everything, but we were missing out on a core human desire, which was, when you're speaking with me, when you're talking to me, please maintain eye contact. That's a internal human, simple human desire. So every innovation that keeps that in mind will thrive. What are your thoughts on, of course, there's going to be challenges in the long run. We don't know whether we're done with all the variants. Hopefully, we're done with all the variants of COVID-19.
Oh, we're done. Simerjeet, I'm done. I don't know about you. I'm done, at least.
There's this news floating around of the BA2, some new variant of it, which again...
No. Don't tell me about something new. I'm good. I'm good.
I hope not. But I hope not. And it's been scary. We've had this wave of optimism and then a new variant. Everybody's gearing up, for going back to the old routine, another variant. So, but then again, let's say if some organizations hold on to work from home for convenience for employees or to reduce real estate costs or for whatever reasons, leaders are going to face challenges to foster innovation, and specifically tech companies. I see the percentage of employees working from home is way higher for technology companies because they were doing it pre-pandemic before as well, right? So they were geared up. They had the systems in place. What are your tips for these leaders who might struggle with the next breakthrough, right? And with their employees scattered globally, working from home, they're comfortable, they're doing the job, they're getting the job done, but leaders feel new ideas are not coming in. When we're not able to we're not able to implement them. What are your top tips there, Shawn?
Yeah, no, I believe that as leaders in this sort of new world, we need to be a lot more vulnerable. I believe that vulnerable leaders will essentially create the most innovative organizations. Oh, wow. Vulnerable leaders are those that actually are okay with saying, I have no idea. I don't know how to go about doing this. Can you help me? And a vulnerable leader is somebody that doesn't have all the answers, but instead empowers individuals and their teams to go off and innovate and try new ways of doing things. I love that. To me, that's the style of leadership that's going to be successful in this new era. And I actually disagree. I don't think that it's a matter of ideas. I actually think that ideas are plentiful and people will come up with all sorts of ideas of doing things. At the end of the day, it's actually empowering people to go off and execute. I talked about innovation being 90% psychological and 10% technological. Well, the other part of innovation is that it's actually 99% execution and 1% ideas.
Which is the hard stuff.
It's really about people having the courage to go off and try something new and having leaders to support them at the end of the day.
I love that. And if I may just add with the execution part, a lot of people never start their journey because they want to make a big leap forward because they assume somebody else who did it all in one go, which is not true at all. We take one step at a time. That's my philosophy, at least. If in venturing into anything new, whether it was, so let's come back to the example of virtual keynote speaking. We've been, using your example and mine. We did not incorporate all these technologies and all these steps all at once. We would have been overwhelmed if we did it. So if I just rewind back some of my videos, we were using a webcam and a light. So the light was, the LED light was the first thing. Let's bring that in. And then we started using an existing external mic, which vastly improved the sound. And then a dedicated internet connection, which vastly reduced network issues. And then one thing at a time, and then the acoustics, and then this, and then that. And now I look back at it, and what happens is if I share this with anybody, they assume that we did it in one go. Who was your consultant? Who was your advisor? They would ask, who did it for you, right? So we did it ourselves and one step at a time. So I think the key here for execution is to break it down. A lot of people have a great insight, but never put it into practice because they're unsure how it's going to play out for them.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree, and I love that you talked about how you set up your studio. I mean, we did the same thing, in our
Right.
theater. It was, experimentation. It was, we started with, with a couple cameras, or like, how do we get the camera to move? How do we figure out the lights? How do we, it's constantly, we had something today, and we're just constantly thinking about how do we make this 10 times better, and having that mindset. In fact, when the article came out that, the best virtual keynote speaker, and, it was great. It was great for my team, and, we were cheering. Sure. But the same day we said, okay, let's talk about how do we disrupt ourselves? How do we continuously, make this thing, 10 times better? And I think having that mentality is really important. I believe in this idea, and I know it's going to sound absurd, but the Bhutanese have this idea of meditating on death 5 times a day. That you meditate on your own death 5 times a day. This is very similar to disruption. Organizations get disrupted, and I think it's actually healthy to think about disruption, 5 times a day. What's going to disrupt you? And to me, that's motivating to say, okay, how do I continuously innovate? How do I continuously push forward? Because listen, at the end of the day, I am gonna die. I am gonna get disrupted. So, it's really a matter of pushing forward, because, the inevitable is gonna happen. It happens to everyone. It happens to the best companies, the best dynasties on the planet. It's inevitable. Everyone gets disrupted.
Are inspirational speakers going to get disrupted? Will we be replaced by humanoids and bots?
Well, you and I will not, but but everybody else.
Not sure about the others, right?
No, I think that I think what you even watching your content, and I really do want to ask you about the content piece of it, and I hope we get there, because I think what you're doing is really incredible. And what's beautiful about video is that you could put out one video, and sometimes you have no idea who's watching it, but the fact that you put out that video and that message can change the trajectory of one single person. And they can go off and do something different. That is so powerful. And I believe that content, like video content that you're producing, actually is one of the greatest ways of creating luck and serendipity and relationships, right? You're putting this information out, and people are learning from it. They're getting insights. They're getting motivated. They're going off and executing. And it's just incredible. And I have a million questions for you on the content
Go
piece.
ahead,
but
please.
I would love to know, why are you doing this? Like, why are you putting out such high quality content at the scale that you're doing? Because do you think at the end of the day, is it going to give you equity in other companies? Is it going to give you, a bigger following? Is it going to raise your keynote fees? Like, why are you doing this?
On the contrary, great question. Thank you, Shawn. On the contrary, a lot of people have told me, oh, you're putting out videos that are 60 minutes long. You're putting out your entire keynote there, every single exercise you did with the audience, all your examples, all your stories, everything you're giving it away. So what will you say for the next keynote? And I'm reminded of, I don't know, it was Aldous Huxley, or one of those novelists. Every time you would ask him, Mr. Huxley, are you coming up with another novel? And he would usually respond, probably something is brewing inside. And I say, well, I've been doing this for 14 years. I've never ran short of new ideas. There's always observations. The principles remain the same. And I'm confident that 6 years from now, 3 years from now, despite all the content we put out, there would be something fresh, something new happening at that point of time that I have to talk about. And so I'm not operating from that mentality of lack or shortage. There's always been plenty of ideas, plenty of metaphors, plenty of amazing people like yourself, Shawn, that we could collaborate and take this conversation together to a higher level. If I would have been talking by myself into the camera right now, I would have run out of stuff way back. It's been 55 minutes into the conversation, and it's just flowing so naturally. So there's numerous ways.
But I want to know. I get that. You know, I'm bullish on putting out content too and putting it out there. But what do you think? What is the end game for you? What are you thinking? Like, you're putting all this content out. That's what I'm interested in. Like, you're building this unbelievable loyal following.
Right.
Where do you think that's going to go for you?
So two things. You asked about the why earlier, and I'd like to address that first. The why is I don't want to take my ideas to the grave or to the crematorium. In my case, I don't want to take I die with my ideas still inside me. And this emerged post. I had a conversation on leadership with a bunch of CEOs, 30 of them, very high profile. I spent an entire month preparing it. You know, all my leadership material, one of the best keynotes I've ever had. And then I finished. I said, you know, incredible. I agree. These people lead companies with billions of dollars in revenue here. They're very prominent companies in the country. These are the leaders, business leaders of this country. And then I stepped back and I thought to myself, but only 30 people, this information has reached only 30. And I put so much effort into it. And that was the entire spirit of self-disruption that you talked about earlier. I said, okay, well, contrary to popular wisdom, which says, hold on to your best material. And so we're going to record, we're going to take it to the youngsters. So we came back, we approached one of our local universities here, Shawn, and we said, we want to do something that we call the Coach on Campus program. Would you like to host me for a Q&A session with your students? And we started through the process of those question and answers, giving most of this content away. Now, the second part of your question was where do I think it's going to take me with these followers, etc. Not in any of our videos, or maybe one or two. I have, I refrain from saying like or subscribe or share. The growth has been organic. The point that I'm trying to make is the growth has been organic, and by adding value, I think it will help me in consolidating my own ideas. Video for me has been a medium of sharing what emerges in the moment. And then when I reflect back on it, say if I want to put it into a book or a blog or something else, I'm now able to refine and make that idea better and more clearer in the process. So it's the spontaneity that video allows me to capture. I had an aha moment, this thing about recipes yesterday that I shared with you earlier. As I was driving back, picking up the groceries, and I have this insight. I said, I don't watch a recipe for not cooking the dish. I want to cook it and that's why I watch it. And this insight happened. I said, I shared it in the very next day in this conversation here. So video allows me that spontaneity, that speed of getting this information out. I hope it blossoms into something more concrete, where the entire mission is to bring information to people who otherwise would not have access to it. Think about this. You're one of the top keynote speakers in your field, right? And we're having this conversation together. And it will be available on different mediums, on podcasts and YouTubes, etc. With the digital drive penetration increasing in countries like India, some kid who's growing up in a village in Jharkhand or Bihar or those areas which have been left behind by development will be able to tune into this conversation free of cost and change his or her life. And that means the world to me. That means the world to me, Shawn. I mean, this kid does not have to come from an affluent background or migrate to Canada or United States or go to one of those Ivy League universities to get the best education. He or she has access to it right here from that smartphone that he is using, and turn his life around. Who knows, it could be the next big disruptor coming from, and that possibility, because I am where I am thanks to moments like these, thanks to mentors like these, thanks to information that came my way, thanks to the opportunities that I had. I wouldn't be here today if I didn't have those opportunities. And then I think it was Kevin Spacey who said, if you were lucky enough to get the elevator up to the top floor, it's your responsibility to send it back down again. And I think that's what I'm trying to do here, is to make sure that if I can now share this information, this experience. I lived and worked in 5 different countries, made a lot of mistakes in my life, learned from them, moved on, picked myself. I lost my dad when I was 21 at that point of time. My career was just taking off. Graduate of the hotel school in Sydney. My first job was in Scottsdale, Arizona, with the Marriott hotels. My career was just starting to take off, first job. And then dad had cancer, and I had to, I made 3 or 4 trips to be with him back during his surgery and his chemotherapy here in India. And then October of that year, 2001, I decided I'm going to move back because, opportunities will always be there. I can always rebuild my career, but this, I needed to be with him. And so I did, and the entire direction of my life changed. But those experiences, living in different countries and learning from them and facing these challenges early on in my life taught me a lot. And I just want to share it with others in the hope, the desire that perhaps it will help them make better decisions.
That's amazing. I mean, I was going to say, I thought you were going to say, I want to buy a boat or something, but no, I'm joking. I think it's incredible. And, a lot of people talk about this. One thing that I'm really passionate about is this idea of the creator economy, the ability for individuals to monetize their own craft, their own passions, and build a gigantic business out of it. And, you didn't say business or wealth or money at all. It was really about the ideas and the people that you touch, and about you refining your ideas. So that's really admirable. And it's really, really cool. That's why I'm just blown away. So it's great to hear.
Thank you, sir. It means a lot. And I think the money comes, the followers come, the fame comes, the recognition comes in due time. Provided I just put up this. We completed, by the way, Shawn, just recently 700 videos on YouTube. And we got an email. I
saw that. Yeah. That's amazing.
Thank you. And I thought, nobody in the team was keeping count until that email said, we've touched 700 today. Wow, that's fantastic, isn't it? We loved the process so much that the results, we love the results too, but it's not like we are going after the results in a very focused way. We experiment, the self-disruption. Now, here's the thing you talk about the creator economy. On our YouTube channel, the single video, which has been the driver of the growth of the channel, has been on communication skills, how to speak well in public, which was part of the Coach on Campus series. Remember me going to universities to teach young students? So it was about communication skills. We didn't anticipate it. We thought it could be a motivational talk or something else. But here's this one video. The audience had a huge hunger to learn about communication skills and spread like wildfire. 10 million plus views on a single video. Here's the thing. The easiest thing for me to do would be to replicate that model and create courses and books and more videos on public speaking and communication skills. Guess what? My audience have told me loud and clear that's what they want. But we've created a few more, 7, 8 more videos, but we've experimented with so many different genres. This conversation series, Beginner's Mind, stories that inspire, poetry that inspires. So Hindi videos, Punjabi videos, videos in English, of course, innovation and self-leadership and so much more. While the easiest path for us would be to just go after more communication skills videos, we didn't pick the easy path because doing the things that haven't been done before, that's where the real fun is, right? Doing the things testing out the things that haven't been tried before. So thank you for asking that beautiful question. Before we close,
it's funny, it's funny you told that story about you did that talk and you created all that content. That's exactly how I actually started my speaking career. A lot of people ask me, what was the fuel for your speaking career? And I say video, because to me, it always made sense. Like you're creating all this content for folks and you're finessing it. I'm like, why am I just talking to the people in this room? This content should go everywhere. So I still replicate that today, and you do it as well. And we both understand the power of video and putting out our ideas. But every single city that I go to, there's a camera person. Every single city, every single keynote, there's a camera, and we're putting things out on TikTok, on LinkedIn, and other places. I know you can, you don't have TikTok in India, but your audience is more than just India. But so I always had that notion as well, and I don't understand why more people don't do that.
I think they should. And we've had, there was this interesting example of this lady from a village in southern India who could cook very well, grandmother, the grandma, and she was holding a gold button of YouTube, and her grandson has suggested, why don't you put out videos of your favorite recipes, etc. She has a huge following of the millions across the world, and they now tune into, she shows them the village life and how if you're a foodie, yeah, sorry, Shawn, you were saying something?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. My mother, so a little bit of background. My mother is from Kolkata. They came to Canada in the 70s.
Right.
My dad is from Dhaka.
Bangladesh?
Moved here as well. And my mom, all she does is she goes on YouTube and Facebook, and she watches people living their lives in India. And it just I guess it reminds her of home. So I totally can get why this grandma is a YouTube star.
Right. And more than that, it's about also people in other parts of the world who want to explore what life looks like in a different part of the planet. I think with the metaverse and all these virtual reality headsets coming in, maybe travel industry will have a little bit of a disruption somewhere. I don't know. Let's see how that shapes out. Where if you can actually feel and see, not feel, but see and experience your resort that you're going to beforehand, that'll be quite an experience. But I'm a foodie. I keep searching for YouTube videos, and you know how the algorithms work. They keep showing me more videos of people cooking. There's this guy in Azerbaijan, and what he does, Shawn, he does not say a single word in the 12 or 15-minute video. Not a word, just natural sounds, him chopping and cooking and etc. Just nature. And he'll just say in between salt, pepper, rosemary, or he'll just say a few words and it'll be complete silence. You can hear the mountain stream in the background and just admire the view of it. And I just find that so relaxing. And it's interesting how video is changing what we consume and what we become in the process. Before we let you go, Shawn, in this very interesting discussion here today, your views on youth and education. I think that these two issues are combined together. What should youngsters, because a lot of our audience are young people from across the world. If I'm a young student right now,
it's such an interesting question. Obviously, this is like another hour of conversation. Ultimately, you can't ultimately prepare for the future. The future is unpredictable. The future is uncertain. There is no blueprint for the future. Right. But we get obsessed with the technical skills. What should we do? Computer engineering? Should we do computer science or data science? What should we learn from a technical standpoint?
What's the trend right now?
At the end of the day, the most important skill is becoming a deep generalist, somebody that has range, that's somebody that has an understanding of what's happening across different industries and verticals, and flexing their muscle around creativity and imagination and trying new ways of doing things. And the beef that I have with education today is that it's so much about the theory and not enough about the practice and and trying things and diving in and getting your hands dirty. Because to me, you can't teach hunger. You can't teach a grit. And if you can, I have two kids. I'm thinking about this thing all day long, Simerjeet. Like, I got a 5-year-old, I got a 2-year-old. I want to prepare my kids for the future, but I just know that the future is unpredictable. So I just want them to be creative and have an insatiable need to learn and be curious and have hunger. And I actually don't know how you teach that stuff. So maybe, if you know how to teach that, I certainly don't.
Well, the one thing that I always encourage, I've got 2 daughters myself, Shawn, ages 8 and 12. And the one thing that I don't say I teach it, I allow it, I give them the permission to, which teachers don't, and the environment does not, is to experiment, is to color outside the lines, is to explore what sort of catches their imagination. If there's one thing that that she's really interested in, so go out, find more about it. Can I help you with something? And give her that freedom and maybe guide her towards the material that will help fulfill that curiosity. Because I believe the foundation of all of these innovative minds at some stage has been curiosity, which our education system, by the way, does a fantastic job of killing curiosity. We have this phrase that goes, curiosity killed the cat, right? And I joke about this. I said, no, no, curiosity was framed on wrong charges. It was ignorance. It was ignorance that killed the cat. So, and now we have more resources than ever before for kids to, explore subjects they're curious about, provided they're given permission by the parents and the environment and the teachers to explore, color outside the lines. In India specifically, we have a huge emphasis on grades. I think we need to do away with. Your self-worth as a young student is directly correlated to the grades in school or college, and we need to change that because that's a huge inhibitor of growth and experimentation. And around failing, this whole definition of what it means to fail and not do well at some subjects, we need to change that. Interesting example, I thought I was not good at math back in school, right? But when I started studying accounting, it was all very natural to me because in accounting, it's all pretty straightforward. You got 100 rupees or $100 come into the business, you spend 50, you got 50 left behind. There are no suppositions. It's not like algebra where there's X involved all the time, right? So for me, the suppositions were difficult, not the numbers. So we got to figure out, we got to do away with these labels, right? We have to allow these kids to, I was the most shy kid in school. I would not go out on stage. I was not an extrovert. I'm still an ambivert. But and a lot of my fellow classmates, when they meet me, they're surprised. You're a motivational speaker now, So I did not obviously exhibited these traits back in school and college. But I think we need to challenge the labels, give them freedom, and do away with this entire phobia of being wrong or, the embarrassment of not living up to the expectations of teachers or parents, because those are our definitions, Shawn. And they may be outdated.
And I don't know if it's like an Indian thing, but, and obviously the new generations are changing, but, there's such an emphasis, Indian culture has such an emphasis on education and getting into a good school. Schools are really just a signaling exercise. You go into a university, not because it's a great school, because you go into it thinking that other people know that it's good, right? And so it's so much of it is actually making other people see that we went to a great university, and our parents included. And I don't know if Indian culture still is like this, but I know, growing up, it was such an emphasis. And, the idea of, you hit it right on the head, the idea of failing and experimenting, we need to sort of infuse this in our DNA, and it's something that I'm really passionate about, especially when it comes to, Indians, and that's my background. So, I'm really passionate about that.
No, it makes sense. And, there's, having said that, at the same time, we need to consider the amount of CEOs this country has churned out. This system has churned out. So we obviously are doing a lot of things right. Some of the biggest tech companies in the Silicon Valley are run by people of Indian origin, right? Many of them first-generation immigrants. So we are doing a lot of things right. And I think with the new education policy 2020 coming in here, and Shawn, so as and when it's implemented, allows room for cross-disciplinary education, so somebody who's studying business can study psychology at the same time and studying physics at the same time, which obviously is a given in countries like Canada and other parts of the world. But we had strict, these linear paths with strict divisions, so if you're studying business, you cannot study the arts, so we have this very watertight sort of compartments, but that's all changing. I hope it changes, because that's what the future looks like for the best artists. They need to, as you rightly said, what was the term you used? The deep journalist. I love that.
Yeah, deep generalist. Yeah, with a specialist focus. At the end of the day, I hope that we don't treat, we treated education like an assembly line. Everyone has to learn the same thing, and we're creating robots. And essentially, what we're doing is in traditional education, we're training people to be mediocre. Somebody who's passionate about innovation and helping organizations with innovation, we need to create more disruptive thinkers, innovative thinkers, exponential thinkers, not assembly line workers. And so we need to flip how we look at education, and I hope there's a reckoning coming. Because I get nervous about my kids getting into school, higher educations of school, and and what are they going to learn, right? At the end of the day, I think school's great as well. Like I think going to school, meeting, connecting, collaborating, developing those teamwork, interpersonal skills, the learning aspect. I mean,
not so
listen,
much.
You can get learning anywhere.
Right. And it's the things they learn after school sometimes that leave the most powerful impact. So school's got to reinvent itself. There's a disruption coming. I believe it's already happening with EdTech and so many other things, which I think will be great, a win-win for everybody. Look, Shawn, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. You have shared your wisdom, your ideas freely. Thank you so much. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to Shawn's channel. We'll leave the links in the description below, as well as his website and podcasts. If there are people from the corporate world watching this and you want to invite him for a virtual keynote at your company, again, you'll find the links in the description below. And once again, we say thank you very much, because this was a conversation which was not just one way. We were both able to add a lot of value. And thank you for coming and sparing your valuable time.
No, thank you. No, thank you. This was unbelievable. And I know you're not going to do this, so let me do it for you. If you've gotten this far in the conversation, please, on behalf of Simerjeet, subscribe, like, follow, whatever you got to do. All right.
Thank you. Virtual hug to you.
He's putting out so much free content. At least you can do to support.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being with you today.
You look after yourself, keep in touch, and keep doing the amazing work that you are doing. Keep raising the bar for all of us, and doing those wonderful virtual keynotes that you're doing. Thank you, Shawn.
Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that was Shawn Kanungo, all the way from Canada, one of the world's leading innovation strategists and keynote speakers, called by Forbes Magazine as the best virtual keynote speaker in the world. And he certainly lived up to the expectations, added a tremendous value during this conversation here today. If I were to create a 30-day plan for all of you who've been watching this conversation all the way towards the end, it'll be this. It'll be a two-step process for the next 30 days that I encourage you to follow. Number one, for the next 30 days, I want you to think big. All right? Think big about every aspect of your life. Finances, career, skills, courses that you want to attend, or even if you want to move into a new career, think big, okay? That's step number one. Now, the second step is going to be a little bit opposite to the first one, which is act small. Think big, but chunk it down, break it down into smaller pieces, whatever the vision that you want to achieve, whatever that you have in mind, the goal that you want to achieve, break it down into smaller steps. And now the second part of the process is to take action on the one or two things that you can, starting where you are with whatever you have available, no additional resources required. So this is my 30-day challenge for you. Think big, divide it into small actionable steps, and take the first one or two steps forward into that direction, which should give you momentum, right? These are one of the top two innovation challenges people face. They don't think big enough, they don't think outside the box, and then they don't take action on their ideas and insights. So think big, act small. That's my mantra there. In closing, I would like to share with you three very powerful thoughts by three different thinkers. One is coming from Thomas Edison on innovation. He said, "I make more mistakes than anyone else. I make more mistakes than anyone else I know, and sooner or later, I patent most of them. I make more mistakes than anyone else I know, and sooner or later, I patent most of them." The most prolific inventor of our times, Thomas Alva Edison. This is what he thought about making mistakes. Mistakes help you to figure out what's working for you and what's not working for you. The second one is coming from Steve Jobs, the person who disrupted many industries. He said, "Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things." Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. Of course, the essence of innovation is also to say yes to a lot of new ideas. But at the same time, innovation is not all about ideas. Ideation does not equal to innovation. So if you have 100 ideas, you'll have to say no to maybe 98, 99, and then catch the one or two and then take them to fruition, bring them to life, implement them. Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. This also applies to external external stimulus, external opportunities, many of those that you might have to reject because they do not fall, they are not in harmony with what you would like to achieve long term. And the third one is coming from Dr. Stephen Covey, who said, live out of your imagination, not your history. Live out of your imagination, not your history. A lot of us are living out of our history. We need to unleash our mental faculties of imagination to live out of our imagination, not out of our history. Thank you so much. And a special thank you to all the loyal viewers and listeners of the Beginner's Mind series. For those of you who watch it all the way to the end, we are deeply grateful. Thank you again.